Alex, Mia, and Josh were thrilled about their weekend getaway to the mountains. They had planned this trip for months, excited to escape the city and immerse themselves in nature. As they began their hike, the forest around them felt serene. Sunlight filtered through the tall trees, birds chirped in the distance, and everything seemed perfect. But as they ventured deeper into the wilderness, they quickly lost their way. What had started as a peaceful trek turned tense as the trail disappeared and the sun dipped behind the mountains. The trio realized with growing anxiety that they were lost. Fog began to roll in, thick and disorienting, making it impossible to find their way back. The once beautiful forest now felt suffocating, filled with eerie sounds they couldn't explain. Just when they thought all hope was lost, a flickering light appeared in the distance. An old man, his face lined with age and wisdom, approached them with a lantern. He introduced himself as Elliot and offered to guide them to safety. Grateful, though cautious, the friends followed him through the fog, which seemed to thicken the further they walked. Elliot led them to an old, decaying lodge hidden deep within the forest. The building looked as if it hadn't been touched in years, its stone walls covered in moss and ivy. Despite their unease, they had no choice but to trust Elliot and enter the house for shelter. That night, things took a terrifying turn. Mia awoke to the sound of footsteps echoing from above, but when she shook Josh awake, he dismissed it as the old man moving around. Yet the noises didn't stop. They grew louder, joined by faint whispers that seemed to come from within the very walls. Soon, strange shadows began to flicker in the corners of the room, moving unnaturally. The temperature dropped, and an unseen presence filled the air with a sense of dread. Objects shifted by themselves, and the friends huddled together in fear as the house came alive with paranormal activity. Suddenly, a loud bang erupted from upstairs, shaking the walls. A shadowy figure emerged in the corner, dark and menacing, sending them into a panic as they desperately tried to open the door, only to find it locked. Morning arrived, but the terror of the night lingered. Elliot returned with food, acting as if nothing unusual had happened. Frustrated and frightened, the friends demanded answers. Elliot sighed and sat them down, explaining the lodge's dark history. Years ago, the house had belonged to a family who mysteriously vanished. Since then, locals believed it was cursed, haunted by restless spirits who trapped anyone who entered. Elliot had been staying there, trying to control the paranormal forces, but admitted the spirits were growing stronger. The house itself, he revealed, had become a living entity, feeding off the fear of its inhabitants and manipulating reality to keep them trapped. With no other choice, the friends begged Elliot to help them escape. Elliot agreed, but warned that the spirits would not let them go easily. As they prepared to leave, the house began to tremble. Shadows moved violently, and objects flew across the room. Elliot began chanting in an ancient tongue, trying to ward off the spirits, but the house seemed to fight back with greater force. The walls twisted, the floors creaked, and dark figures surged toward them. In a frantic race, they dashed for the front door, which barely opened in time. Just as the house seemed ready to swallow them whole, they burst through the door into the cold, fresh air outside. Outside, the fog had lifted, and the early morning sunlight broke through the trees, casting the forest in a peaceful glow. The friends, breathless and shaken, stared back at the lodge in disbelief. Elliot stood silently behind them, his face unreadable. They thanked him for saving them, but something about his calmness unnerved them. As they walked down the mountain path, they turned back one last time, only to see the house shrouded in fog once again, Elliot's lantern flickering faintly before disappearing into the mist. For a moment, they wondered if he had ever been real, or if he was yet another spirit tied to the cursed lodge.